Okay, this is my response to why Allan Lichtman got the 13 keys wrong. These are my thoughts. If you are not familiar with the 13 keys, just go on the internet. I think there's a Wikipedia page explaining them. And if you really want to get deep, you can go to Allan Lichtman's books. He's a professor, a history professor, a historian who predicts presidential elections. He got all of them right except for 2000, but he claims he got it right. He has some kind of a paper where he explains why Al Gore should have been president. But I have arguments there, because if his system was so great, then why did it come down to one state? Now, so right there, that shows me that it's not a perfect system, and no predicting system can be. So let me go through his 13 keys. And like I said, if you're not familiar, you might have to look this up, because I'm not going to explain everything. Number one key, you have to have, let's go back and let me explain that. You have to have 6 false keys. They're basically questions, and 6 false keys will say the incumbent, the party in power, will not win if you have 6 keys or more. And I argue that there are 6 keys and even maybe more, at least partial keys. So my theory is that if you have a lot of partial keys and other variables, his system's not going to work 100% all the time. So here is the first key. It's a party mandate key. It means the question is, does the party in power hold the House of Representatives? No, they do not. The Republicans do. So that's a false. I agree with Allan Lichtman there. Number 2, primary contest. There wasn't even a primary. He said that it was true. That's very questionable, because they basically installed a candidate basically like a toilet. Okay, I'm not saying that she's a toilet, but they ripped Biden out, creating, friction in the Democratic Party, and they pretended that everybody was behind it, but nobody was even able to vote for her, for Kamala Harris. They weren't even able to vote in a primary like a normal Democratic election. So that's very, very questionable. I give that a false. He did not agree. Incumbent party sitting president. Well, obviously, he's the sitting president is not running anymore, because he dropped out or was forced out, however you want to see it. So that's false. So right there, in my opinion, 3 falses. Okay, and then there's another one, no major third party. Because normally when there's a third party, it goes against the incumbent party. In this case, what happened was RFK, who was the closest to holding the percentage that Allan Lichtman thinks you should have, dropped out, and he endorsed Trump. And he campaigned with Trump. And he's a Kennedy. And I know a lot of people don't like him, and he's controversial. But it doesn't matter, because he's a Democrat who has a huge name, and he endorsed Trump. And I think that helped him. So while it might be a true, I think that helped and actually hurt the incumbent party. Now, number 5 key would be short-term economy. And he's got a very specific definition about recession and all this kind of stuff. And while we might not technically be in a recession, my argument is that the perception of the economy, the inflation, specifically the price inflation that has not come down, has made a huge impact on this race. And Allan discounted it, and I'm giving it a false. So this is his keys to the White House, so perhaps I should make my own keys to the White House. I don't think he can own keys, and I can use these and define them as I want. And my definition would be perception of economy. Now, 6 key is long-term economy, and I know he has a specific definition, and I'll give that to him. I'll say it's true that we have a strong long-term economy. I know the stock market is good, and I guess there's a lot of jobs out there. And now I think that a lot of people are working 2 and 3 jobs, at least 2. I know a lot of people that work 2 jobs. And that makes it look like the economy's better. And then some people have dropped out of the workforce, and some people have retired early. So it's not the greatest economy, but I guess comparative to the rest of the world, it's strong, and the long term doesn't look terrible. But again, this price inflation is killing us, and that's why I give key number 5 false. I'm very adamant about that. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 falses. I only need 2 more falses to show that the incumbent party would lose. Major policy change. Now, I read about this a little bit, and it said it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. That's going to count for the incumbent party. Now, one of the major policy changes was, opening the border, basically, and letting millions and millions and millions of people, more people than there were during the Trump administration. And my conservative estimate is that there was 7 to 10 million people coming through the border, and that's minimum double of what Trump had done in 4 years, or what happened during those years. But let me tell you, it's a lot of people, and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, and a lot of people, minority communities, are not liking that. So number 8, no social unrest, and his definition was it had to be like the civil rights days or the BLM protest riots, whatever you want to refer to. But, I would give it a partial key. If this is my method, is some of these might not be full keys, but I would say definitely the Gaza thing, the war in Gaza, that definitely has hurt the Democrats. And so I'm going to not give it a false, but it's definitely not helping. No scandal. Okay, now if you know anything about the Hunter laptop and his reference to the big guy, which everybody assumes is the president of the United States at the time, Joe Biden, a lot of people believe that there were some criminal things going on in the Biden family. And I guarantee you that did not help the incumbent party. And the fact that they were hiding Biden's cognitive decline, especially Kamala Harris, she had to have known. I mean, we all saw what happened on that debate, and we all saw what has happened over time and how he has done things like put MAGA hats on and all kinds of things that Joe Biden has said that just is crazy. So we all know that that's not helping the incumbent party. And even though you can't say there was an official scandal that has been accepted on all sides, a lot of these things are very scandalous. That's not helping them. Number 10, no military failure. Well, Afghanistan was a big failure. And if you don't think so, you better do a little more research on that, because that was awful. I'm not even going to go into that, but it's not hard to find. Military success. Allan saw Ukraine going into Russia as a success, like breaking into their land. But why I don't see that as a true that that's military success is because the war that had been going on for years has completely annihilated the whole country of Ukraine. And the fact that they went into a little bit of Russia, that's not a success. And what the hell did we have to do with that? That was Ukraine that did that. So I don't believe that we can say that's a military success on our part. So I would give that a false, and I believe Allan Lichtman gave it a true. So right now, I could say that I counted as 1 false, 2 false, 3 false, 4 false, 5 false, 6 false. Right there, I've given it 6 false already, and I'm not even done with the keys. Okay, so the next one is incumbent charisma key. Now, nobody thinks that Kamala Harris has charisma. Not even her side of the party. I mean, maybe some Taylor Swift fans and maybe a few women out there. But come on, she is not got any charisma. Nobody likes her laugh. And if they do, I have not met them. They have not admitted to liking her laugh. Trump. Okay, so he's had universal appeal with The Apprentice and rap music. He's been in rap since the early 1990s, maybe even the late 80s. Until today, he's still being talked about in rap music. And as you might know, his increase in vote in the Latino community and the Black community has been a major new thing for Republicans to have that much vote. And I think when he got shot in Pennsylvania and he raised his fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight," I think that had universal appeal. And I think at that moment, I think he had a lot of charisma, over a whole range of political, independents, Republicans, Democrats. And so I think that he gets part of that key. So, you could say that half the country hates him, but I think he gets a partial key. I mean, even Facebook, Zuckerberg, I can't think of his first name. He even said he was a badass. And a lot of other people on a lot of different sides thought that. And so what are some other reasons why I thought that Trump was going to win? First of all, Biden has a low approval rating. And record low, wrong track, right track. There's a record low of that too. I think that only 25% of Americans think we're on the right track. And Kamala Harris is the vice president. No matter what she says about being a candidate of change and new generation, she said on The View, if you would you do anything different? And she said, "I can't think of a thing." That sunk her campaign. And that was just, the worst thing she could say. And she couldn't answer questions. If there was a yes and no question, she would never answer it. She would just start with these, what they call word salads, and say things like, "I was raised in a middle-class family." And, both of her parents were professors. I think professors get paid pretty well. And she lived in some really nice areas. So I don't even think she was middle class. So there you go with that. So there was, like I said earlier, there's change in voting patterns. And even Allan Lichtman talked about that his keys could be disrupted with that. He didn't even mention that when he tried to figure out why his keys didn't work. I watched half the video, and it was a lot of, I don't know, it sounded like excuses to me. But, he had some points about how things are different and this election was different. But he didn't say anything about that before his prediction or during his prediction about how it might not. Well, he did say, "Oh, I could be wrong." So I would add another key to the 13 keys. So mine would be called the 14 keys, maybe. I don't know. Bad candidate key. Say if you have a really bad candidate, whether they have, onset cognitive decline or whatever they might have, like Biden did. Because I think even if these keys were stronger with Biden, which I haven't really looked at that yet, it doesn't really matter because a really bad candidate could completely, you know, change the whole key thing. So another thing is that Trump's messages were way better. I mean, he's like, look at my 4 years, look at their 4 years. Lower prices, no wars, border was secure. We didn't have things like men playing in female sports, biological men playing in female sports, things that are cultural issues that are actually very important in a lot of the Latino community. And I even believe a lot of the Black community, they don't want these way left ideologies to rule over them. And I think that, you know, Trump had sort of a gangster appeal because he had been indicted so many times and had the DOJ going against him. And he, you know, his argument is he's innocent. I don't know if he's 100% innocent in everything, but I mean, a lot of these cases, I mean, you got to shake your head and you're like, you know, they wouldn't have done this to anyone else. Like the hush money trial, that he paid someone off and they didn't put the right thing in the ledger. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like Bill Clinton, it paid lots of different women off to keep their mouth shut. It's called hush money, and I believe it's legal. And so the fact that somebody, you know, didn't put the right thing in the ledger, because, you know, there's a lot of different reasons you would use hush money. You don't want your family to find out. I mean, and so even if it was, you know, they're saying it's because it was before an election and he wanted to keep it from the people. It's called hush money. It's legal. So I don't really know what their legal arguments are. I don't know the law. So maybe there's something there where he could get fined, but sent to prison and felonies and all this and that. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. And that was the only case that really stuck that I noticed, because he's been fighting these for years and he's not in jail. And so to tag him as this big bad felon, you know, he lived how many years? 70 plus years without being in trouble at all with the law. So it's obvious to me that Biden wanted to lock him up. In fact, he even said, we need to lock him up. His exact words. And then he called half of the American people, at least the Trump supporters, garbage. And then they tried to deny it by saying, you know, they didn't put the apostrophe in the right place. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the 13 keys and why I think Allan Lichtman was wrong. I think he was very arrogant, and I think he was not really looking at them with an open mind, because he hates Trump and he loves Biden. He thinks Biden did a great job. And, you know, the American people didn't agree, at least the majority, the voters, millions more, don't agree with you, Allan. And I know you hate Donald Trump, and you let your bias show in these keys. Your key system actually works, but I think that you really didn't think about it. And I know you're a professor, and I'm not even close to being a professor, but I look at these things very objectively, and I'm seeing a lot of different reasons why there was no way that she even had a chance of winning. Was there another candidate that could have beat Trump? I'm sure there was, but they didn't have a primary, and they are complaining about democracy, yet they didn't even use democracy. And if they did, they might have won. But they said, we're going to install this candidate. No one challenged Kamala Harris. And the reason they did is because they were pretty much said, if you do, you know, it's the end of your career. And that's how these parties can be. And whether it's a Republican or Democrat, there's just these people with money and power, and they're going to tell you what to do. And that's why the next 4 years are going to be very challenging for Donald Trump, because they're going to challenge him and they're going to put him through hell again. And that's what happens when an outsider comes in and tries to represent the people.